Kansas State at Kansas Thursday Night Football on the Fox Network. Marco, what should bettors be looking at?
Well, RJ, both teams are coming off embarrassing losses in their last game. So I look for both teams to go back to basics with the coaching styles of their head coaches. And that's going to give us value in the total in this game. And I'm going to have a play on the under in the game, and we'll explain why.
Okay, so you give projections on these games, and then each week you have your best bet free pick, and it's not on this game, though. So clearly, when people think Kansas State, they're thinking about last Thursday's demolition that they experienced at the hands of Nebraska. So clearly, my gut feeling is playing on Kansas State would have advantages because we always talk about it. People remember what they see. They saw Kansas State look horrible. It's going to take a gutsy bettor to bet Kansas State here, though. Then the question becomes, people remember that Kansas was beaten by a 1AA school. So what's making you not like either side here? There's got to be pros and cons on both sides.
Well, there is.
Clearly.
Well, first of all, the knee-jerk reaction, obviously, like you said, the Nebraska game is most visible in people's minds because it happened last Thursday. There are going to be some people that would say, hey, that was Nebraska, and they'll say Nebraska is really that good, and let's say Kansas State.
Yeah, but the line was 10.5. Remember, it's expectations. They weren't. Unfortunately, I liked Kansas State in that spot, and I never felt like I was in the game.
Well, when they came out of the tunnel, didn't you?
That's true. So I guess the question is, well, let me ask you this. Is on one hand, Kansas State underperformed. On the other hand, if you think they're a decent team at all, this is probably a bounce back spot. Do you like them less? Has their power ranking been lowered in your mind? And even if it has, do you think they're going to play a little bit better because of the bounce back?
Their power rating would have lowered just slightly. I don't make an over adjustment because I really think where the adjustment is on the Nebraska side. I think Nebraska is way better than people because really nobody's got to see a lot of Nebraska yet this year, and they had only played one big game so far, and that was the Washington game.
Yeah, at this point though, this team's getting
we're going to
talk about it later in the Texas matchup in another video. Is that they've been bet pretty hard. So let's drill down though real quick. Is really with power rankings, there's going to be a team ranking, and then there's going to be a game adjustment. So let's say, for example, the Vikings this week, and we're going to be talking about that game, they played on the road on Monday Night Football. So whatever you think their power ranking is, you'd probably make about a point or so game adjustment for lowering their ranking based upon the fact that they played on the road on Monday night. So it sounds like to me with Kansas State, you're saying that the team, because of the Nebraska performance, you're adjusting downward, though not over-adjusting. But because of the bounce back with a good coach like Snyder, you might actually put them up a point in game adjustment, and thus it pretty much evens out. Is that accurate?
It is accurate. And another key factor in this game, we're 6 weeks into the college football season. This is the first true road game for Kansas State this year. They played a away neutral game earlier in the year, and I believe it was against Iowa State where they played in Missouri. It wasn't a true road game. So this is the first time, 6 weeks in. I look at the game. They played on Thursday last week, so playing on the road on another Thursday, there's no disadvantage because they are getting their full week of prep. On the flip side, Kansas took the week off last week to come back and play on the short Thursday.
When you said took the week off based on this season, I'm not sure if they played the game. Did they play a game?
Well, that's true.
All right, so situationally, Kansas State is about even from 10 days ago in your mind. What about Kansas? So the question is, Kansas had an embarrassing loss. He had a surprising win at home, the second or third game of the year against a top 20 team. Was it Georgia?
It was Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech. So where's Kansas at as a handicapper in your mind?
Kansas is a team, on my mind, it is in a rebuilding mode. They're not as bad as we saw them in that first week where they got beat by North Dakota State at home. But again, they're not as good as they looked against the Georgia Tech.
But this is the same thing you told us 3 weeks ago. What have we seen since?
We haven't seen anything since from them because they've had wins and losses. They've played better at home. I will give them that. They've had 3 games at home. 2 of the 3 at home have been good. What I'm looking at here is both teams are going to rely on the running game this week. I think they're going to want to minimize mistakes. They're going to play it more back to a basics. You know, you heard me always say that after a bad performance, the great Steeler coach Chuck Noll always used to drill, we're going back to basics. And I think that's what you're going to see from both teams here. Go back to the running game, minimize mistakes. I think that is going to send this game under the total. People are just going to look at the scores that these teams have had in recent games. I mean, obviously, Kansas State gave up a ton to Nebraska.
So give us your projection.
I have this game as a 24-21 type game. I have Kansas State winning it. That's right where the number is. But I'm looking at a total of around 45 points. That's under the 50.5.
So opinion on the under. Let me close with a few concepts. We talked a lot about Coach Bill Snyder last week, Kansas State. Didn't come through. But this is a guy that really emphasizes this in-state rivalry. He's won 12 of 13 games against the spread against Kansas and 12 of 13 games straight up. So, I mean, 12 of 13, that's total domination. And this is a Kansas team that just a few years ago was in the Orange Bowl, a game I was at, against Virginia Tech. Now they've only covered 3 of 14 ATS. So, and again, there's been a coaching change.
That's why.
Yeah, second half of last year and this year, 3 of 14 ATS. Nothing to get excited about there. Okay, now it's your turn to continue the conversation in the comments section with me and Marco. And next up, we're talking about the Friday game, Cincinnati at Louisville.